As a progressive energy and solutions partner, enriching lives for a sustainable future, PETRONAS is committed to create long-term value. One of our sustainability lenses, continued value creation, fits perfectly with our strategy that focuses on growth towards sustainability. This lens focuses on making sound investments that benefit the business, community, and environment in the long run. One of the many efforts is the research on CCS technology. Natural gas contains compounds such as CO2. CCS will separate the CO2 content and permanently store it deep in the depths of geological layers offshore. Taking advantage of nature's powers, we're also harvesting the power of the sun. We've grown our total solar capacity up to over 1 gigawatt in Malaysia, India, and Dubai. Combined with various innovations, as well as product, solution, and digitalization upgrades, PETRONAS is on our way to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. We want to be your integrated energy and solutions partner for a cleaner, innovative, and enriching way of life. Together, we can deliver real and sustainable values to the world. Human activities over time have increased GHG emissions in the Earth's atmosphere, warming the planet. PETRONAS wants to be part of the solution to deliver energy responsibly for a livable climate. And for that, we are taking actions towards achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. With Safeguard the Environment being one of our sustainability lenses, we collaboratively reduce environmental impacts by transitioning to lower carbon energy solutions while deploying innovative operations and technologies. One of our efforts lies deep in the virgin rainforests of Sabah. Together with Yayasan PETRONAS, we embarked on the Imbak Canyon Conservation Project that houses a plethora of flora and fauna. By setting up the Imbak Canyon Studies Center in the conservation area, we aim to enhance plants' genes bank for pharmaceutical and biotechnological applications, while creating sustainable livelihoods for surrounding communities. From the lush greeneries to the deep blue seas, PETRONAS continues our environmental efforts through Rig to Reef in collaboration with the Department of Fisheries. These new marine metropolises also provide protection from illegal trawling activities. It helps sustain livelihoods for local fishermen, with more fishes coming to the area after this project began. We are taking action today to deliver real and sustainable values for a better tomorrow. Different communities all over the world have different goals. The goals we have as an organization are for the betterment of the lives of the people. As a progressive energy and solutions partner enriching lives for a sustainable future, PETRONAS aims to create positive alliances with the surrounding communities. One of our sustainability lenses is positive social impact. Through this lens, we aim to protect and add value to the well-being of employees, partners, and society. Our sustainability journey to bring positive social impact began way back in 1975. As of 2021, PESP has benefited approximately 37,000 students in pursuing their dreams. We've also continuously supported the growth of STEM in the education system and established learning institutions such as University Technology PETRONAS, Institute Technology Petroleum PETRONAS, and Academy Laut Malaysia. Aside from a positive impact through education, numerous CSR efforts have also been made to enrich the lives of the surrounding communities. One of them is the Water for Life program that provides access to clean water. The water yards and public taps installed have benefited more than 100,000 people, including from Malaysia, South Sudan, and Iraq. This is our way of giving back and sharing this valuable resource with society. Whilst building alliances, we want to drive positive change for the people and the environment. Together, we can bring meaningful and sustainable solutions to the world. The change in the world affects our day-to-day lives, including the way our workplaces operate. As a progressive energy and solutions partner enriching lives for a sustainable future, PETRONAS upholds firm governance within our operations. With responsible governance as one of our sustainability lenses, we aim to safeguard the organization through strong governance mechanisms and ethical business practices. Safety is our utmost priority. Governed by policies, PETRONAS ensures the safety of our employees and contractors without compromise. This provides a safer and healthier work environment for all. Meanwhile, innovative solutions such as robotics and artificial intelligence greatly reduce the hazards in high-risk environments. The human rights commitment guides every aspect of PETRONAS's business, from the supply chain to the people within the group and the surrounding communities. Strong governance and ethical standards embody the way we work at PETRONAS. As we are passionate about progress, we continuously benchmark ourselves against international standards to provide the right solutions for you. Together, we can bring significant changes now and for the future.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this PETRONAS broadcast event. My name is Raymond Yap from CGS CIMB Securities. Today, we are very honored to host three PETRONAS public listed companies simultaneously. That is, PETRONAS Chemicals Group Berhad, PETRONAS Dagangan Berhad, and PETRONAS Gas Berhad. All three companies are represented by their respective managing directors and CEOs. From PETRONAS Chemicals Group, PCG, we have the pleasure of speaking to Encik Muhammad Yusri, Muhammad Yusuf. Encik Yusri was appointed to the PETRONAS Chemicals Board of Directors on 1st January 2022. Before joining the board, Yusri was the Vice President of the Refining and Trading Operations of PETRONAS. Prior to that, he was the Head of Manufacturing for PCG and has held key roles in various PETRONAS Chemicals subsidiaries throughout his career. From PETRONAS Gas, PGB, we have with us Encik Abdul Aziz Othman, who was appointed to the board on 1st January 2021. Right before that, he served as Vice President of Strategy and New Ventures at PETRONAS Energy Canada Limited and PETRONAS LNG Limited. During his career that started in PETRONAS Gas as well, he has served in key roles in various other PETRONAS subsidiaries, including as Head of Strategic Planning and Ventures at PETRONAS Chemicals Group. Finally, Encik Azrul Osman Rani is representing PETRONAS Dagangan PDB today. He was appointed to the board on 1st January 2020. Before that, he played a key role in the development of the commercial and JV operations at the Pengerang Refinery and Petrochemical business. He was also with the Malaysian International Trading Corporation, or MITCO, as it was more popularly known then, where he headed the representative office in Indonesia and was involved in the marketing of petrochemical products to Indonesia. His career with PETRONAS started at the PETRONAS Dagangan retail business. Thank you to Yusri, Aziz and Azrul for taking time to speak to investors today. Just to note also that we have the CFOs with us here. That is Encik Azli from PETRONAS Chemicals, Encik Sharul from Petronas Gas, and Puan Farslina from Petronas Dagangan. Our program today will start with a video message from the Petronas Chief Sustainability Officer, Ms. Charlotte Wolfby. After that, we will have the panel discussion and then followed by the question and answer session. Participants can type in your questions in the Q&A box on your screen at any time during this entire session. Starting it off, let's hear what Ms. Wolfby has to say on sustainability.
My name is Charlotte, and I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer here at PETRONAS. It's great to be with you here today. Sustainability is really important. It actually sits at the heart of PETRONAS' strategy. From a business perspective, this is really important and relevant today. Now, you would have heard of the energy transition, something that's really going to transform our sector, but also how we produce and consume energy going forward. Now, one of the key drivers of the energy transition is greenhouse gas emissions. 3/4 of the world's man-made greenhouse gas emissions stem from existing energy systems that we have globally. Now, fossil fuels have been hardwired into our modern economy, but now we need to kind of unwire it into a more sustainable system. So we need more renewables whilst we are decarbonizing our existing energy. And for PETRONAS, this is very, very relevant. Actually, it's nothing new to us. Now, you would have heard about our net zero carbon by 2050 pledge or aspiration. So when we are delivering our net zero carbon emissions by 2050 plan, we must engage much more broadly with stakeholders across society and forge common objectives and work across the whole ecosystem and our own value chains as well. PETRONAS is committed to this net zero carbon emissions aspiration, and we are in the process now of developing our own roadmap to support this aim. And this is aligned to and anchored on business context, national positions, international standards, and climate science. And our strategic intent right now is to broaden our economic activities, catalyzing green growth, whilst we are also addressing key sustainability challenges through our climate, nature, and social actions. So this is not business at all costs. It's about business that will create social progress and value for society. Now, we know from research that net zero activities have the potential to deliver strong GDP growth and job creation. There's a report in Malaysia that was issued last year that estimates that actually GDP could grow in addition by about 11 to 16% through this sort of green growth focus and provide another additional 140 to 240,000 jobs. But in order to realize these gains, investments are required in necessary infrastructure. And for that, we need incentives and early adoption of green technologies. And we also need to support sectors to transition from maybe the old system to create value and see the value pools in these new value chains. So the responsibility to shift towards a lower carbon future should not lie entirely on the shoulders of the energy sector. We need focused and concerted efforts from all constituencies across society. And the event here today, of course, really is in support of that, creating a common vision and some common objectives of how we can create that green growth that delivers the progress that society needs. And on those words, I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being there today. And I know that you will have some very exciting activities later on. So good luck with that. And I hope to see you very soon again. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte, for the message. And now we will begin the panel discussion. PETRONAS has set out 4 sustainability lenses or sustainability pillars, and these are: number 1, continued value creation; number 2, safeguarding the environment; number 3, positive social impact; and number 4, responsible governance. So let's approach this panel discussion in the context of these 4 sustainability lenses. Number 1 is continued value creation, which means growing a company's value proposition so as to be financially profitable and successful. I would like to direct this first question to Encik Yusri. PETRONAS Chemicals has built up a strong portfolio of commodity petrochemical products in the Kerteh and Gebeng integrated petrochemical complexes, as well as urea, ammonia, and methanol manufacturing plants in Kedah, Sabah, Sarawak, and Labuan. PETRONAS Chemicals is in the process of commissioning its Pengerang petrochemical complex as well, which is also in the commodity petrochemical space. There are also many other extended value-added projects like nitrile butadiene latex, ethyl xylates, and melamine, as well as your push into specialty chemicals, beginning with Da Vinci's Netherlands acquisition and now the proposed acquisition of Sweden's Perstorp. For listeners who are not familiar with your broad strategy for value creation, why was there a need to build the Pengerang petrochemical complex, and why is there a need for you to expand into the specialty chemical space instead of just sticking to commodity chemicals?
Thanks, Raymond. If you look at PCG, we are predominantly a gas player. Our portfolio of basic chemicals are mainly derived from gas, and even at that level is mostly methane and ethane, with a small percentage of propane and butane. So if you look at PCG as a company, how do we grow? And then we set up our growth strategy on 2 prongs. One is strengthening our basic chemicals portfolio, and second is selectively diversifying into derivatives and specialty chemicals. So let's talk about the first prong, and this is why we invested in Pengerang. If first and foremost, for us to grow, if we were to follow our current model, we need gas molecules, and as we all know, that is finite, and with limited gas resources, for us to grow, to continue providing the right value return to the investors is going to be limited. So we have to find optionality, and that is why we are diversifying into a liquid feed, which is Pengerang, and with naphtha through crude oil. So we are able to now add basic chemicals to our portfolio, but with a differentiated feed. That's one. The other reason, with gas, is about chemistry. With gas, our range of product in our portfolio is limited. So it only drives to the first level derivatives. With naphtha, in the liquid cracker, you get a longer chain molecules that is available for you. And that, things like butadiene, things like raffinate 2, that allows us to be a little bit more creative in offering, a basic or intermediate chemicals. And it also allows us an organic role into specialty chemical later. So those are the 2 main reasons, Raymond, why PCG embarked on Pengerang.
If it's okay, can I also interject? I mean, something close to my heart, being operating domestically in Malaysia. I think there's another benefit of investment in PIC, which is the spurring of local economic. I think not enough has been said about that. And I do know that in a previous position that I held about a decade ago, we did embark on a study, not in Malaysia, but in a foreign country, where we look at investments within a country and the multiplying effect it would have on the economic activities within the country. And it's beyond just employment and taxation. you're spurring demand for local businesses to thrive. So there are a lot of ecosystem play with an investment in Malaysia as well. So I think that's also another added advantage for why Petronas invested in this.
Okay, that's great. So just to summarize what you two gentlemen have said, the Pengerang complex is important because that's really the only way that you can grow your commodity chemical business. Because of finite gas resources, you have to rely on the liquid feedstock like crude oil and naphtha, as well as potentially opening up the opportunities to develop additional products from, let's say, the C4 chain. And of course, what Azrul mentioned about developing the overall ecosystem in Malaysia of oil and gas services and employment and so on. Yeah, okay. That's great. And how about the Perstorp and the Da Vinci acquisitions? These are major acquisitions that you're making in Europe. How does that fit into your overall strategy, into Yusri?
Okay, right. So as I mentioned on our growth strategy, there are two prongs. I mentioned about the first prong earlier. So the second prong is selectively diversifying into the derivatives and specialty chemical. Again, it's about growth and it's about protecting our value. Specialty chemicals is less cyclical, it's more market pull, it's more intimate to the market. And then if we understand the market and we can grow accordingly, and it is a little bit more disconnected to the upstream value chain that we have. So I mentioned with Rapid, we have now some feedstock, so that we can go into specialty chemical. That's one way of extending the value chain, going to more derivative, nitrobutadiene latex, isononanol. That comes from the molecule that we have from Pengerang. But to go further into specialty, to create a substantial presence, we organically, it's going to take time, and we don't have currently the capacity internally to build. It requires technology, it requires market knowledge. So that's why on the strategy for us on creating a platform for PCG in specialty chemicals is through M&A. And this is not something that we did it overnight. We crafted our growth strategy in 2017. We defined the pathways of how do we get there. We defined the end markets that we wanted to be. So there are, I think, 13 end markets, and these are all what they call this sunrise market that is emerging and that is going to be sustainable for the next 15 to 25 years. And we started identifying and tracking the companies within those segments that serve those markets. And thus, in 2019, we acquired DVG International, or now we calling them BRB International in 2019. And only 3 years later, so we're doing our homework, we're tracking, we went in at the opportune time, and we put in a bid and has been accepted for Perstorp, which is 10 times larger than BRB. So we do hope that we can close Perstorp by October. We are calling for EGM this Thursday to vote for to approve the Perstorp acquisition.
Okay, that's great. So it looks like you have entered into the M&A process with a lot of deliberation and analysis of the areas that you want to go into in order to make sure that you basically buy a good company that can see you grow for the long term. Okay, so thank you very much, Encik Yusri. So now I'd like to turn to Encik Aziz from Petronas Gas. So Petronas Gas owns and operates the centralized utility facilities in Kerteh and Gebeng that supplies electricity, steam, oxygen, nitrogen, industrial water and waste disposal services, and also operates the peninsular gas utilization pipelines to deliver gas throughout the country, as well as operate the LNG regasification plants in Malacca and Pengerang. You have a strategic roadmap called the R2 Game Plan. Could you explain to us what this entails?
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, everybody, for joining in and listening to us today. Okay, for me to explain the 31Q99, maybe it's good for me to articulate what are the business coverage of Petronas Gas. You mentioned the two core business that we have, i.e. utilities, gas transmission and regas. But we forgot to mention that we also have a gas processing business. So these are the three core business that Petronas Gas has. Now the business is simple. Gas processing and gas transmission as well as regas is like the highway. We just own the facility, we operate it, then we have our counterparties who has booked the capacity on long-term basis. So the gas processing unit actually is we have a long-term contract with Petronas until 2033. The gas transmission, we have a long-term contract with Petronas Energy and Gas Trading and also until 2023. The regas terminal, there are two regas terminal. The regas terminal Sungai Udang, we also have a long-term contract with PETRONAS until 2023, and the RGTP, another long-term contract with PETRONAS until 2042. So we do have those capacity being reserved on long-term. The utility business is the only merchant business that we have. But it's also being contracted on long-term basis. It was on long-term basis with Petronas Chemicals. Recently, it was renewed for another 10 years with an option for another 10 years. So, thank you, J.U.3 for that.
Yes, everybody know that Aziz supplies my feedstock and also my utilities.
Yeah, so it's a good counterparty for me. Now, it's simple as this. We will collect the revenue from all this facility as long as we make the facility available to deliver the product for the customers. So the 31Q99 is about operational excellence to make sure that at all time our facility is available. So we started the program actually in 2019. 30 is at that time one of our issue was the utility business was operated below 90%. So the target of increasing the utilization to above 90% was embedded in that roadmap as 30% improvement on the utilization. Then 1Q is about operating our facilities at top quartile. 1Q is a top quartile in the area of energy efficiency, energy intensity. Then the 99 is about reliability, achieving the target of not less than 99%. So I'm happy to say that since 1999 until today, the 90% target for utilization has been achieved. All our utilities product are above 90% utilization. In as far as energy intensity, there are two targets. Energy intensity at top quartile below 90%. We have achieved 88%. The other one is the maintenance cost over replacement value to be below 2. We have reached 1.44. Now, the last one is a sustained asset reliability of 99%, 99% of 31Q99. I think the last 2 years, we have actually operated well above 99%. So the product has been able to deliver to the customer for us to collect the capacity payment as well as the revenue from the utility business. Embedded in that program is also an annual KRA, Key Result Area, on efficiency optimization. And since 1999, we actually has delivered almost 360 million of value improvement from the key result area through this program. And if you realize that the 31Q 99 also has evolved. Every year we add in a new element in it. So as you see today, it has become 31Q 99 pushing forward plus. So the pushing forward is about adding the growth element into the program. So the growth means more investment every year. So I think Shooting would probably know in the last 2 years, we have sanctioned projects worth about 1.7 billion as part of that pushing forward plus element of the program. So when you look at our business, it's about making the facility available. Then this 31Q99 is about ensuring the operational excellence to make sure that we make the facility available to deliver the products to our customer. And with the long-term contracts that we have today, with the focus on those operational excellence, I'm sure we can actually sustain our dividend if we continue to deliver on the operational excellence levels. Yeah.
Thank you, Encik Aziz. Just like to follow up. You talked about investments that you're making for growth. Tell us a bit more about that.
Most of the investment, the pipeline portion, because we deliver the gas on behalf of PEGT, who is the capacity owner. So when PEGT actually lock the gas sales with the various customer, then we would be required to expand our system to deliver the gas to the customer. So if you recall, we have made announcement of projects. We always have a code name for the projects. Projects like Tulip last year, investment almost 500 million. Graphite 2 years back. Recently, there was a project called Bergen Villa for pipeline connection to a customer in Banting. There's 2,000 sector of the pipeline to debottleneck the pipeline, project called Score and Star, and a few other investment to modernize our gas processing plant. So all those are projects that in the last 2 years we have announced, and there will be quite a few more as we are required not only to meet the demand growth, but also to modernize our facility to make sure that we continue to be reliable.
Okay, thank you, Encik Aziz, for the rundown of the various projects we're doing. So now I'd like to put Encik Azrul in the hot seat.
Oh yeah.
PETRONAS Laguna has also invested in additional value creation. So over the past couple of years, you have introduced the Premax range of fuels. You have upgraded the stations as well as the industrial outlets. You have added more food items, more services, and you've also built the online payment app Settle, of which I think you're very proud of. Could you give us a rundown of all that you've done to improve the customer experience, whatever that I've missed over the past 3 years that you've been MDC?
Sure. Thank you for the question. And I think it touches a very core of PDB's being, which is internally we have a promise, which is to make our customers' lives simpler and better. So one of the common things that you see with all the projects or all the efforts and initiatives that you mentioned, Raymond, anchored around that. So whether it's better fuel for our customers or better experience at our station, it's all about making their everyday life simpler. So that sort of rallies the team with a single-minded focus on some of the activities and why we giving us meaning and purpose. So indeed, that opens up a lot of play also for whether it's via Settle, looking at customer experience. Now, a lot of people, especially the younger generation, we're seeing a big fraction of why they like the flexibility and the convenience that it provides, to checking their balance of Masra points, to buying things online, thus leveraging on our other initiatives such as Prism, where we sell a lot of PETRONAS merchandise, which we also find valuable in terms of the demand. It's really growing and we're very excited about that. And Masra Cafe, we've started the company this year for us to give it a little bit more focus. So we're not just looking at, of course, the low-hanging fruits in the initial phase is to have more Masra Cafes at our stations and those are the easier ones. We have about 16 as of today. I think I'm hopeful by end of the year we'll hit about 40 plus, and we're going to grow this quite aggressively in the future with a lot more offerings that our customers like. And as we go along this line, I think this is an area of very exciting new opportunities for PETRONAS. We've also invested quite heavily on a digital backbone that gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of what I want to do. We have the first outdoor payment terminal that's fully digital touchscreen in Malaysia, and for some of those units are actually first in the world. So we are ahead of that curve in terms of giving that customer experience, and there are a lot of potential areas that we can look into that as for example, as an advertising opportunity space. But first and foremost, still anchoring on customer experience. So those are some of the things that we are working on. Fuel, you mentioned fuel. We've invested quite heavily in looking at making sure that our customers get the best fuel out there. I think when we did that, we went through a series of testing and research, and we wouldn't have launched a fuel that we were not 100% confident that vast majority of Malaysians experience it from blind tests to know that it's actually the best fuel out there. We continuously track and talk to our customers, so we know we are on the right track and people are experiencing that additional value that we're bringing to our customers. So those are clearly some of the big areas that we're working on. And we continuously look at packaging, sourcing, and other materials, and that's an ongoing activity in terms of how we plan to add further value to our customers.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good rundown. I think all of us have the experience of using PETRONAS Dagangan station as well as the Mesra outlets. So that's very close to our heart. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, all companies are investing in value creation. So I think PETRONAS Chemicals, Dagangan, and Gas are all doing their own respective efforts towards improving values for shareholders. So let's move on to the next sustainability pillar, which is the environmental pillar. So this is important to safeguard the environment. And first, I'll focus on carbon emissions. So let's start with Encik Azrul again.
Sure.
The PETRONAS Dagangan Scope 1 and Scope 2 CO2e emissions is actually very small. And that's really understandable because you don't actually refine or produce those fuels. All you do is to market the fuels and retail them. But your Scope 2 emissions made up about 60% of your Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. So meaning that it's coming from the purchase of electricity. So in order to reduce the Scope 2 emissions, I understand that you're pursuing renewable energy. You have a solar panel installation program. And at the end of 2021, you generated some level of solar power electricity, but it's still very small compared to your electricity consumption. So I'd like to ask, how much more can you expand the solar panel installation program? And are there any other sources of clean energy you can buy to reduce your Scope 2 emissions?
Yeah, I think solar is still primary, where we see can make the biggest impact in the shortest period of time. And to some extent, solar technology has been evolving at a rapid pace. So it's in a way, yes, we would have wanted to start it earlier, but I think starting a bit later does have its benefits from the scalability of it and economics point of view. The route that PDB will try to choose, because we believe sustainability is a joint responsibility for all organizations. In some organizations, even our collaboration with the group, they have invested heavily in solar and they are better equipped and positioned to be able to play this game. So we are looking at more collaborative approach, Raymond, than just going on it head on. So we have already signed on board, at least on the first phase, 60 new dealers that have agreed on commercial terms. Of course, a lot of people may not know, but actually a lot of the stations, we have dealership agreements that has been evolving since 40 years ago when we started. So we do need to look and have discussions with our Rakan Niaga or business partner who runs and operate the stations to agree a win-win commercial model for us to implement solar. So we are excited about that. Of course, we are going to grow and we have ambitions to solarize almost all our stations. But of course, some stations may have its challenges with HSC or lease left remaining on those specific sites. So those are the things that we need to say. So we won't say we're going for 100%. So we do have some criteria on how to scale that up. Unfortunately, the MCO or the lockdown did have an impact and slow down on our ability to scale this much faster than we would have wanted to. But I think we're back on track to do that already today. I think that would give us the biggest bulk in reducing the scope 2, as you mentioned. And yeah, so that's still the primary focus.
Are you pursuing this solar panel installation on the capex light model?
Yeah, we have some agreement where we can choose to put in more capex, but we'll look at that selectively. By and large, we found partners that are willing to put in the capex for us, and I think that's working as a very good model, because we also need to incentivize some of our dealers to agree to having solar panels at the stations. So these are some of the win-win solutions that we're looking to scale up. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Maybe I'll ask Encik Yusri to talk about your solar panel installation program.
I may add, Raymond, to Azrul. I think if you heard Charlotte and the PETRONAS net zero carbon aspiration by 2050, and that is translated also to PCG's commitment. So solar is one step of decarbonization of our operation. So shifting some of the electricity scope 2 impact. So as Azrul said, it is not big. I mean, for us, but it's a step. So we are working with partners. We are working with the group. We are working to ensure that, first and foremost, the energy, alternative energy that we put in is sustainable, and it's also reliable. I mean, for us as part of operation, reliability is important. So it is something that we are progressing, and it is something that we are collaborating, as Azrul said, with many partners and many parties to move ahead, at least to start decarbonization, some part of our scope 2.
Okay, how about Encik Aziz? Can you talk about your solar panel program?
Thank you. I think similar to my other two colleagues, suppose on the building itself, as you're aware, I'm operating throughout Peninsular Malaysia. I have 10 site offices, which all the buildings we're thinking about putting the solar panel on top of the buildings. But what I'm most excited about is, my pipeline is traversing across Malaysia, from Kerteh to Segamat to Singapore to up north to my hometown in Kedah. So that's about 2,000 kilometers of right of way. Each right of way is about 40 meter width. So that's a lot of real estate for me to do things on those real estate. And solar panel could be a consideration. But today, there's still technical challenges. If you want to inject to the grid, there are technical challenges. There need to be the right location. Even installing a solar panel, you need it to be at the right place. You know where the sun is the most optimal. So all that challenges are being assessed by us, whether we can turn those right away into something that can be further enhanced with all this potential green power generation. Second part that I'm excited is our utility. Today we are generating about 300 megawatt using conventional gas. I have my customers asking whether I can make it a hybrid offering of conventional plus green. So we are assessing potential of having those hybrid offering to some of the customers in Gebeng as well as Kerteh. So those are the areas that we are looking at as far as trying to green our business.
Yeah, I think as they improve their offering, will also have an indirect impact on companies like PDB. Our scope will also come down. country. So that's why I think it's an ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's the collaboration that we have to do. You know, as you know, and as is mentioned earlier, you know, we get our utilities power from PGB, Petronas Gas. So as they decarbonize and increase the green ratio, that's their scope 1, which is scope 2 for me.
For him.
So indirectly, you know, as a value chain, you know, we are reducing the whole ecosystem. So I think that's where the collaboration and the what do you call this, the linkages and the synergies happen.
Okay, so if Petronas gas increases the proportion of electricity generated from renewable sources, that reduces their scope 1 emissions, but the electricity that's supplied to PETDAC and PETCAM will also be greener. So
Yes.
your respective
Scope
scope 2 emissions will also be reduced.
For the group,
Yeah, be reduced.
For the group.
Yeah.
So
that's
we
right.
will kill two birds with one stone. It all starts with Aziz.
in this case, 3 birds.
The only hypothetical, and theoretical, if you think about it, all companies really zero in on the 1 and 2. Scope 3 is a non-issue.
Correct.
So
Yes.
in essence, that's the right way to look at it. So that's more sustainable and more.
So the 2,000 kilometers real estate is important for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so turning to Encik Aziz again, right? So I'm going to give a couple of difficult questions to you. So based on your annual report, sustainability report, we can see that your scope 1 and 2 emissions amounted to 4.7 megatons of CO2e. You have a hard cap of 5 megatons CO2e, so you don't want to exceed 5 megatons. And in 2021, you emitted 4.7 megatons of CO2e. And just looking at your cap, 5 megatons of CO2e is higher and above your emissions for every year that you have disclosed from 2017 to 2021. So it seems like you're setting a cap that is above your existing emissions for the past 4 years. Can you actually set a more ambitious target?
Okay, thank you. Actually, it's million ton rather than megatons.
Okay.
Okay, so okay, maybe it's good for me to tell the bigger picture rather than focusing on what we are talking about in 2022. As we have declared in our annual report, we are actually coming up with a roadmap towards net zero. Like my colleague here, we are all part of Petronas. We are committed to net zero by 2050. So for PGB, we are on board with that. But for us, we have been aware about the CO2 situation since early 2000. You know, when we started to build our facility, we reached the 2 billion standard cubic feet per day capacity of gas processing in 2000. At that time, we already start measuring our CO2 footprint. At that time, our footprint was about 5.4 million ton equivalent per annum. Before there was even a talk about all this, the need to go green, we have started various programs to reduce our CO2 footprint. We went out and did flare reduction program. We did fuel gas optimization program. We focus on equipment reliability and efficiency. We take care of flare gas. You know, there's a lot of storage and a lot of oil off gas we flare. All that we have zero rise in. Not only that, we also went out and tried to sell the CO2. So today we sold almost 300,000 of CO2 per annum. So those are the efforts that we have tried to reduce. And since then, until today, we have reduced almost 1 million ton. And today our footprint is about 4.4. It varied depending on the production year by year.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why you see sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. Now, this is a teaser for you. The blueprint will come out before year end. But what we intend to do, we have clustered up to 2030, 2040, and 2050. Now, up to 2030, as you can see, what we have left with from the operational side are all difficult to realize initiative, because from 2000 to today, we have tackled all the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
But nevertheless, we are committing to reduce by 20% by 2030 from, again, elimination and reduction program and fuel switching, like I mentioned just now. Some of the gas turbine that we're using, probably we will either import, change it with importing electricity from the grid or installing renewable. So with that, we believe we can reduce by further 20%. But what we really focusing on is, this is working with the group, with Petronas, as Charlotte mentioned, is about capturing the CO2. So I'm actually co-located with Cik Yusri in Pete. He probably producing about 5 million ton post-combustion. I'm producing about 4 million ton of post-combustion and inherent CO2 in the feedstock. All that we are working together as a group to gather the CO2, capture it, and send it to the upstream depleted gas field to be injected and store it rather than emitting to the atmosphere. So that one, the only barrier that we have today is cost. Technically, it has been done in other parts of the world. Now, what we are focusing on is how to tackle the cost. If that is feasible, majority of our CO2 actually will go away.
And do you expect the carbon capture to be in place before 2030 to help you achieve that negative 20% emissions?
I'm putting myself at risk here because this is a joint effort with the group.
Right.
But for Petronas, probably looking at later part or after 2030 at the earliest that we're going to have this program in place.
So if carbon capture is after 2030, are you still confident that you can achieve a 20% reduction in emissions by 2030?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you should look at 2050, yeah, where net zero is the ultimate target. So if carbon capture is actually realized by 2040, probably 80% of our CO2 will away. Then the only remaining part is probably about netting off. So part of this netting off, the biggest issue now is who's actually to certify. For example, if I buy an area with trees, how much is actually carbon credit? If I install a renewable solar, whatever, how much is actually the carbon credit? So all that need to be resolved before we actually work on the netting. But all in all, with all those roadmap, I believe 2050 net zero is achievable.
Okay. So it sounds like the roadmap that you're going to publish before the end of this year is quite a step up from the targets that you have set, the Sustainability Report 2021.
Definitely.
Right. Okay, that's good. And we'll be looking out for that document. Okay, so turning over to Encik Yusri, Petronas Chemicals has quite a substantial amount of Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions amounting to 7 million tons per year, which is very sizable. And that's not counting the Pengerang emissions. How much do you think Pengerang will add to the total emissions?
Currently we are 7. I think Pengerang will add like a shade under 2, so we'll be closer to 9 once Pengerang is fully operationalized.
Right, I see. And you also have the net zero carbon emissions pathway, which is to see emissions fall by 20% by 2030 and 80% by 2040. So reflecting what Encik Aziz mentioned just now, CCS or carbon capture and storage will also play an important role. Just to double confirm on that.
True, Raymond. I think, but I think we do traverse similar path. I mean, with say our 9 million ton of carbon CO2 equivalent. There are 4 levers that we see. First and foremost is what they call this operational excellence. This is ensuring, as this has been explaining, your facilities runs at its optimum. You don't waste energy. You don't waste resources. So if a stoichiometry ratio is 1, it's supposed to be 1. It should not be 1.2. Right. So that's the first thing. So and then look, it's also looking at a different type of catalyst, more efficient, lower consumption, higher yield. So those are the first efforts of reducing those emissions. Secondly, we talk about decarbonization. And for me, a huge chunk of scope 2 is power supplied by my dear supplier there. So as he decarbonized, right, automatically we talk about his scope 1, my scope 2. My reduction was long. So that's one. And in addition, we're also doing things internally without what they call this, leveraging on the supplier, things that we can do internally. And there are localized what they call this alternative that we look at. There are alternative of, for example, changing some of our burners to electric. And obviously, if we do that, we'll need green electric. So those are things that we can do now. And the carbon capture and storage, yes, it's a big chunk. Technically, it's available, it's feasible, and our Malaysia and our region is blessed with a geography that is very suitable for that. But as Aziz mentioned, cost is something that we're working on. It's not just the reservoir, but it's also about capturing and transporting to the reservoir. So it's the whole ecosystem we are hoping to curate and develop over the next 5 years. So when that happens, a big chunk of our CO2 emission will go away towards our zero. And only then we look at your offsetting. I can go out to TNB and buy RECs now, certificates, and I can turn my offsetting already. So those are things and that we are looking at, and those are levers that we have towards zero, and our immediate term of 20% by 2030. I believe we really focus on the operational excellence. We really focus on what we can do on decarbonization for PCG. 20% is achieved.
Okay, that's great. So as you mentioned, you see there are 4 levers you're working on, which is operational or efficiency improvements, and then working towards greening your energy supply, for instance, buying from more renewable sources, and then carbon capture and storage, which is going to be a huge part of the carbon removal process, and then followed by carbon credits.
Yeah.
If you can no longer offset whatever residual emissions there are.
We really need the regime to be in place,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It's like we need a body that will certify for a certain green initiative how much is actually the carbon credit. It's like the halal certificate.
Yeah. Yes, carbon markets are still very in the very early stages of development in Malaysia and globally as well. Okay, Encik Aziz, I noticed that your sustainability report did not include Scope 3 emission disclosures, whereas PETRONAS Dagangan and PETRONAS Chemicals have done so. Are you planning to mention and disclose that going forward?
Yeah. Okay, that's 2 things. First, as Azrul mentioned, we are in a value chain. If any one of us take care of the portion, then definitely that thing will go away. But irrespective of that, I mentioned about my blueprint. uh, part of that is, now we will look at those 15 elements of scope 3 to see where is relevant to us. And based on that, it will be part of the declaration that we that.
Okay, sure. So Encik Azrul, for scope 3, that's a huge chunk of your emissions. Basically, it's the combustion of the transportation fuels that you're selling. And you have made effort to reduce your scope 3 emissions. For instance, you are selling LNG to your shipping customers that has a lower carbon content. You're also increasing your biodiesel offering and also offering sustainable aviation fuel to, I think, Malaysia Airlines. Perhaps could you give us a bit more color on how you plan to grow all these lower carbon fuels going forward?
Yeah, I think it's the ecosystem in general. I think more and more companies are looking at reducing their scope 1 and their scope 2, which means we need to then work with them to provide more solutions. I think for PDB, we are the customer-facing organization within the group. And I think the big advantage of being part of this larger group is the collaboration that we have in producing more green energy, to the improvements in our refinery in terms of carbon capture and carbon reduction mechanisms that they're doing, that would then ultimately help us reduce our scope 3. Being very practical about it, I think hydrocarbon is still going to be around for many years to come, at least within the country. I personally don't see that transition to be overnight. It's going to take several years, and we need to be able to make sure that whilst we are delivering those products and services, because we cannot have the economy at a standstill, we still need to pursue and do what we can to help accelerate the energy transition. For example, EV chargers at our facilities. We do know from our data that the number of utilization at the moment is extremely low. But through collaboration and other arrangements that we have in with other partners, we think this can help accelerate somewhat. So over time, that would help us reduce our scope 3. In addition to that, we are focused on what we call revenue diversification. So a lot more thought and ideas and investment debates and discussions at board level, just at management level, are centered around having a bigger pie of our future revenue coming from non-fuel. So that would, of course, indirectly mean over time that we'll be able to reduce also emissions.
I see. Okay, that's great. Yeah, just zooming in on the EV potential that we are likely to see in Malaysia over the next decade. You have a couple of EV charging stations in your petrol stations. You mentioned that the utilization is low, and I suppose it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. With more charging stations, more people will be encouraged to buy EVs. But how is the business model there evolving, you think? Will you be putting in more capex, or is the capex now currently borne by somebody else? So, and how would you charge your customers going forward?
As much as possible, I think for us, as I mentioned, when we look at core competency, I think at the moment collaboration is better, because PETRONAS has also announced or launched Gentari as a vehicle to look at a lot of the deployment of these technologies, not just
green mobility.
Green mobility, they have one of their pillar of agenda. So I think as a PDB, it's perfect for us to be able to then look at collaboration with them. So moving forward, you will see more EV chargers that are Gentari brand, and that stems out of collaboration. Of course, internally commercial agreements, within the group, we are having some discussion, but I think everything's very positive. It doesn't preclude PDB to in future to invest heavily in this when we feel that the market is right. So I think that this is some of the areas that we are working on.
Okay. And an open question to any of the three CEOs here. Recently, PETRONAS signed an MOU with Tenaga Nasional on innovative low-carbon energy solutions, for instance, hydrogen or CCS. Could you elaborate on how this is going to progress going forward?
Okay, let me take that. I think the MOU itself, first is about potentially utilization of hydrogen. TNB is probably in the worst position at best when it comes to power generation, because 40-50% of the fuel mix is actually coal. So it's less green than us. So what they're looking for is actually how can it help to make their generation more green. So utilization of hydrogen probably where it could be an option. And PETRONAS is looking at hydrogen as a new fuel source, green fuel source. At the same time, even if TNB convert everything to gas, the combustion of gas into power still produces a lot of CO2, much less than coal, but still a lot of CO2. So for TNB is how do they tackle that CO2? And that's where PETRONAS, we talk about CCUS just now. So if PETRONAS is really making this viable as a hub for capturing and storing CO2, then it's a matter of gathering those CO2 from TNB's power plant, which is all over Malaysia. You need to find a way to move that.
Yeah.
Because the only place that we can gather it and send it offshore is in Kerteh. So for me and Yusri, we already in Kerteh. We can actually gather and
we can just pipe
it to offshore. But for TNB, the gathering, then the transportation to Kerteh, that will be a challenge. But if PETRONAS do actually make this happen, then you actually have so-called a storage. Anybody can come and actually put the CO2 in there, of course at a fee. Yeah, but that can be something that workable for the country.
Okay, yeah, but I think Raymond, this is when we talk about this is about collaboration and ecosystem. As we collaborate PETRONAS with them to turn TNB more green, the beneficiary are us. It's me. I source my power, as I said, from Aziz and from TNB, from the grid. So my scope 2 automatically reduces. So the beneficiaries are the industries, are us. And that's why I think the collaboration that we see, though it focuses on things, but it touches a lot of people along the value chain.
I see. So one level of CCS is at the Tenaga substation, and the carbon is then stored in a geological formation offshore. And perhaps another way of CCS is where PETRONAS produces the hydrogen from fossil fuel, but with CCS, and then that hydrogen is combusted in the Tenaga station to generate, again, green energy. Okay, or blue energy in a sense.
But it's not only Tenaga station. I'm also in power generation. So I could be building power plant based on hydrogen and sell those green electricity to Azrul or Yusri.
Okay.
But our aspiration at PETRONAS, Raymond, is green hydrogen. Blue is a transition. Our aspiration is green hydrogen, and that's what Gentari is working for PETRONAS to make happen.
Okay. So, Encik Yusri, just continuing on from discussion, you have plans to set up a chemical recycling plant in Johor and elsewhere in Malaysia. And this is about taking unrecyclable plastic waste, usually plastic bags that goes to the landfills, and then you want to turn it into a naphtha-like feedstock that you can feed it back into your naphtha cracker at Pengerang, and then make recycled polymer products from the unwanted plastic waste. You have been doing feasibility study on this project for a while. Have you reached a conclusion that is viable? Will you proceed with it?
I think if we look at now, this is what we term as circular economy, and from our perspective, we aspire to create what we call new plastic economy for PCG. And it is an emerging market. There are demands on circular polymer now. If you look at packaging, some of our customers says, hey, can you supply me 20% circular polymer? if you cannot, I won't buy from you. I'll buy from those who can supply. So I have no options rather than be in that, create a circular plastic into my portfolio. So that's why we have been doing feasibility study for a while. But what comes out of it is again, we talk about value chain. Key for this this initiative is the feedstock, is the waste. And as I'm sure, I hope everybody understand, in Malaysia, that portion of the ecosystem is still very fragmented, it's not yet properly managed. So for me to get sustainable, secure, reliable supply is not as easy as we thought. So we have been working with multiple parties on that end to make sure we are able to solve that supply issue before we go ahead and commit on the processing part. The technical part of the processing is that if we can sort the supply issues, we can go ahead. And we can do that if we were to import. But that's not what we wanted to do as PCG. We wanted also to be able to contribute part of our sustainability agenda to the society, to Malaysia. So we hope that in doing this, we will also be helping and solving Malaysia's waste challenges that we see. So it will, again, we will hopefully, by doing what we wanted to do, we are also able to provide some impact to the society.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that because I think we're just using too much waste, and in some sense we can't avoid it because every biscuit is packaged individually in plastic and there's really no way around it. So I think your plant will be very important for waste management in Malaysia. So I'm looking forward to having that in place. So I'd just like to move on to carbon taxes and emission trading systems. And this is the very big in Europe. In Europe, the carbon taxes or the price of carbon allowances have risen to higher than 70 euros per ton of CO2e. And you have presence in Europe, in GS3, in terms of the BRB and as well as the upcoming Presstop acquisition. How are these high allowance prices going to impact business in Europe going forward?
If you look at what we have now, which is BRB, I think BRB's carbon footprint is very small. Because they are not manufacturing technically, they are typically blending formulation and stuff like that. So the footprint is minimal, and what we see today, is the impact is already built into the business. What Presstop is a little bit different. That's why what attracts us to Presstop on their sustainability journey is their commitment to neutralize their carbon. So they already have a plan to shift their product portfolio. They already have a plan to, for example, one of their project is to build a green manufacturing facility. So they are already on pathways. Where they are today, they do have carbon credit. They are in the net credit terms. So and we have quite a headway, and we do not expect that that will impact us in the near and maybe medium term. That head space that we have currently. So, but as we transition into a greener product portfolio, I think that headway will grow.
I see.
So that's where we are with Presstop, and that's one of the key attractions that PCG sees in Presstop.
I see. Wow, to have on a net credit basis is quite impressive. Certainly didn't
Yes.
expect that. Okay. Turning to Encik Azrul, the fuel subsidies that are provided by the Malaysian government for fuel purchases amounts to something like a negative carbon tax. And if the government removes it partially, there could be some impact on demand. Do you see that impact on demand, and how do you think that you can mitigate that impact on your volume sales?
Indeed, I think, well, fuel in general, I would say from a elasticity of demand, it's pretty low. I think in general, it's still today where we sit in the world today, it's essential. It's an essential item for travel, and there's still a lot of them. Yes, there could be some discretionary traveling, for example, that may be curtailed. So could be some reduction, but I think from at least from indications that I see, it's going to be phased. I don't see a huge immediate, mega change overnight. And then the fuel subsidy would, in theory, have. If there was no fuel subsidy, I think the lower income segment may be curtailing their traveling a lot more, as opposed to the upper echelon. So because of the fuel subsidy and it's targeted, then it may be cushioned somewhat. But yes, as a prudent operator, we do look at stressing our numbers. If and when it happens, we will be able to understand how it's impacting the economics. Where we sit today, we see a huge spike in especially road transportation demand in the near term, but will yet to be seen in terms of the true impact to the extent subsidy is implemented or target subsidy implemented, and to the degree of which that is going to be. We're still in discussions.
Okay, yeah, it's the devil's in the details, and if the government does not reduce the fuel subsidies for the B40, then I suppose the impact will be well absorbed by those who are able to afford it.
Again, it's relative, right? So it could be implemented in such a way where it's not immediately 100% removal of subsidy. There could be even at a certain level have some level of subsidy, but maybe less. So there are many iterations that can happen. So we do not have enough information to ascertain that impact yet.
That's right. Okay, sure. So yeah, turning to Encik Aziz, Petronas Gas is situated in Malaysia almost entirely in terms of the whole business. And the government has mentioned in September last year that they're looking at a carbon tax and a domestic emissions trading system in place. How do you think that this might impact your business going forward in terms of what you might have to pay or incur in terms of the carbon tax and the allowance?
Okay, first and foremost, I think maybe with the committee that has been set up by the government, this thing will come before the end of the decade. Singapore has
quite a long time to wait.
Yeah, but Singapore has introduced, but they only $5 per ton. $5. But let's be realistic. The country now is also faced by a lot of other issues of high cost of living. There are other high cost items that the government needs to manage. Introducing this also will definitely add costs. If you look at the world today, actually the biggest carbon emitter is the developed countries. More than 80% actually carbon emitted today is countries like US, China, Europe. So while we want to do our part, everybody must do their part. So if you tackle the other developed countries, you probably will tackle the world problem better. But we will do our part. Again, like we mentioned just now, introducing the carbon tax definitely will add to the cost, which will be transferred to the customer.
Right.
And the government has to make an assessment on that.
Right.
We are talking about subsidy. Now we are adding tax. I don't know how the regime will work, but maybe they should do like US. And they have this 45Q regime, tax credit if you capture a certain amount of carbon, you get tax credit, for example, instead of introducing carbon tax.
I see. More like a incentive to
Incentive
reduce carbon
to
rather than
do
a penalty
penalty.
for emitting carbon.
Yeah. But it will come either way. So, but I hope country can look in totality, considering that there are other costs that we are facing.
Okay, okay, sure. The Just a question on the voluntary carbon market. So that if you guys are looking at offsetting your emissions in the future, there are a couple of different categories of carbon credits. Some are forestry based, which are mainly avoidance in nature, and others are removal in nature, like direct air capture. But they're a lot more expensive. And some are renewable energy credits, which are probably the cheapest out there right now. Yusri, you mentioned that you are looking to buy the RECs from Tenaga, for instance. Is that going to be your preferred type of voluntary carbon credits that you want to buy, or would you be willing to go towards the more expensive technology-based removal credits, which are very like direct air capture, which can be very, very high price?
Remember, as I said, I mean, there are options available. The immediate options available are, are RECs. Yeah. So there are other things, but as I said, these initiatives cannot be done by one single party. It has to be a collaborative party. So we are evaluating on many angles. But if I were to buy offset now, RECs is available. But as I said, you will talk about our levers. The operation excellence levers is first and foremost. That's what we can do, because it not just benefits in terms of in terms of carbon CO2 emission, but it gives you economic benefits because you will be operating at a much higher efficiency level with respect to your output. So focusing on that to achieve at least the first 20% reduction is critical. So I think that's where we are. And it doesn't mean that we are not looking at other options. We are, but first and foremost is focusing on the operation excellence levers, the things that we can do internally. Solve our CO2, but also give us economic benefits as a business.
Understand. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left to this broadcast session, and we'd like to move on to the final two sustainability pillars. And number 3 would be positive social impact. So I don't have any specific questions here, but I'd like to go around the table to ask the MPCOs about your social programs, your health and safety environment programs, and any other programs for wider community in Malaysia. So maybe we can start with Encik Azrul.
Clearly, this is something also personally dear to my heart. And that's one of the reasons, one of the added benefits of moving to Dagangan is that Dagangan is forefront. Because we are customer facing and we carry the brand, part of our accountability and responsibility is also to ensure that we do our part that impacts the social in general, in particular Malaysians, right? Because this is where we operate. So where do I start? I think there's been a lot. We've got a lot of activities ranging that have been ongoing for 20 plus years. For example, our programs like Smart Street, etc. That we do. But I don't want to talk too much about that because a lot of media has already covered that. A couple of new things that we've introduced, for example, Rover. When we started Rover, it was for one purpose, and what we discovered is that it also serves another purpose. Particularly, for example, flood affected areas. So it doubles up as sort of a mitigation with working closely with the government to be able to address, especially rescue efforts in flood affected area. The last year it was deployed and it was very successful. In addition, we've also looked at, Rover in particular. We looked at how does PDB be able to deliver more efficiently to rural areas that is far and remote. right? Because as a Malaysian national oil company, also we have that added responsibilities beyond just financial numbers, but we also look at how we will be able to impact people's lives, and including in rural areas in Sabah, Sarawak, for example.
And just for the benefit of listeners who don't know what rover is, it's basically a road tanker to deliver fuel.
Yes, that's
To
called the
different places.
original rover, Raymond. But also rover, I wish I could have a photo, but it's okay. You see that photo on the screen, the middle one, that's the one that we launched in Sabah. So that's an area. It doesn't have wheels, so it looks like a skid tank, but built in it is a lot of data and analytics and capability and safety, which is very important for us in how we operate. So we are looking at that, and we are in discussions with the government to scale that up further. And I think there are opportunities for us to really make it both economically feasible, but also having positive impact in society. So those are just some of the things. Of course, we also, a very strong supporter of Love Local. As I mentioned before, I think Malaysians, there is a huge multiplied impact when Malaysians buy Malaysians. It's not just about employment. It's not just about taxation that the government, additional taxes that the government be able to acquire, but there is a lot of spin-off, right? When we work with over 1,800 micro, small, and medium enterprises, we are creating livelihood that has a spin-off impact. You're not just giving profitability to an international CEO that's going to have a huge fat bonus at the end of the year. You're actually empowering young Malaysians to be able to send their kids for schooling or extra tuition. So there is a whole ecosystem of where doing those entrepreneurship activities that we do will also have a big, largest. I can go on and on.
You're basically talking about the moms and pups supplying to Mesra stores, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the kuih, I see
The
that.
way we
I see
also
the
have
lots.
Sagat Mesra initiative where we try to bridge farmer to consumer. It's a collaboration that we're doing with the government so that we can uplift the livelihood of fishermen and farmers here. So there are many other activities that
Not just a petrol station anymore, but also a fish market or something like that.
No, I mean selectively. I think we need to understand where we can play and where it doesn't make sense. Looking at everything we have today, for example, 70 Sagat Mesra outlets focusing primarily on poultry and fish. And I think these are good quality product. I'm a vegan myself, so I can't tell you how it tastes. I've been a vegan for 2.5 years, but a lot of people that I know and my family members have tried it and they like it. So in essence, there's a lot of win-win things that we can leverage on our ecosystem to support social impact.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, James. Encik Aziz, can you
Okay.
share with us your social programs?
I think in as far as a CSR program, you can read it in the annual report. We articulate what actually the program that we have done. But I think two things I want to touch. One is because my facility is generally all over Malaysia, passing through highly density populated area. So safety is a given. So we have done a lot to make sure that we have not create hazardous facility to to the communities surrounding our facilities. A lot of program that I can articulate. That's one. Second is Petronas in general has been issuing a lot of scholarships, billions since day one. I'm Petronas scholar. Usually it's probably Petronas scholar, Azrul also, but that is part of the group corporate social responsibility. But at PGB, we are going at the lower level of the operators and technicians. This year we sponsored 15 students at our ISTEP training center in Batu Rakit. Just graduated, we absorbed all of them to our facilities. The next batch has just came in. We sponsor another 35, which we hope that we can take them all on board. But if we cannot take them on board, then we is part of the human capital development for the industry. We cannot take them on board, but we are committing to continue this sponsorship, not less than 15 year in, year out, to make sure that it's not only for our buffer, but also for the industry in general. So those are the things that we are focusing on. Beside joining as part of the PETRONAS Group CSR.
That's right. Okay. Thanks, Encik Aziz. Encik Yusri?
Well, I think it's similar. It's about creating positive social impact. So when we wanted to do that, people is at the core of everything, be it our employee, our stakeholders, and even more so to the communities where we are in. So as with Aziz, EGP, because our operations are local, HSC, safety, environment is very important. Not just for our employees who works there day in and day out, but also for the surrounding community. So we first and foremost make sure all those what is needed are there to ensure the safe operation. And also we are involving the community into our operations and also engaging them, on that aspect. Just maybe just a couple. We don't want to get into detail, but for us, when we talk about CSR, there are a few things that we do. I think we talk about education. One thing that I want to highlight here is we starting to embed the knowledge, not just the knowledge, but awareness and appreciation of. We talk about circular economy early. So we have started on 3R, plastic education, working with Ministry of Education, have a short curriculum at school. We started with primary school. For Malaysia, we started in Kerteh and the areas of our operation. Now we are going the whole country, and we may be migrating next to the secondary school and so on. So teaching on the children on what do you call this, on sustainability, on recyclability, and things that we can do to ensure that create that awareness. Second is also, I just want to mention what do you call this, our signature project on environment. We do have a center in Kerteh, along Sungai Kerteh, Eco Camp. This started as a mangrove rehabilitation, but we have a visitor. We also have a camp downside operated by Malaysian Nature Society with the community as volunteers. So everybody is there are volunteers. So we involve the community, give the awareness, and also rehabilitate the whole mangrove population along Sungai Kerteh. So and this is something that we are proud, and because it's open to public, they operate on self-sustaining. So MNS runs camps, visitors, and so on, and we support them. We created and established the center together with MNS, and now it's well into operation. So that's one way of us getting the awareness of the environment, getting the awareness of sustainability into the community.
Okay, that's very good. Yeah, one day I'll go and visit the mangrove swamp and stay in the camp.
Yes, please. I think you will enjoy it. You will enjoy it. And you'll be surprised the knowledge of the local communities. They can explain to you the flora and fauna there, like a professor.
Okay, looking forward to that one day. Okay, so let's move on to the final sustainability pillar, which is responsible governance. So I know that for all PETRONAS companies, all will follow the code and conduct cascaded down from the parent company. But there are always a couple of interesting features that each company can talk about. So maybe I'll ask Encik Azrul first. What are the new developments in your governance structure that you'd like to highlight for our business today?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the key focus areas of our responsible governance is firstly to strengthen governance and reporting. I think we are also looking at the numbers, and I think these are some of the things that we'll be looking at a lot of our disclosures moving forward. So that's probably underpin the most important element that we're working on right now. And also there are a lot of within the governance, board oversight and management looking at it. I chair internally within PETRONAS Dagangan the sustainability committee that we look and steer our organizations. So those are some of the key areas that we're working on. And I think we are anchored on those 4 pillars that you saw in Charlotte's thing. And we have about, at least in PETRONAS Dagangan, we have 7 key focus areas that we're looking at. For example, entrepreneurship development in terms of creating value growth, looking at supply chain, all our sources of our thing, and trying to move in direct where we can make the biggest impact, looking at responsible sourcing as an example. Human rights is another area that we want to focus on because we have a big ecosystem within the group, so we're looking at collaborating with them, starting with low-hanging fruits first, for example, looking at long past drawn agreements and see where are opportunities for us to negotiate that our ecosystems do also adopt some of these requirements that we want to impose. Of course, bear in mind PDB started 40 years ago, so some of these agreements you really need to spend time one by one. But we're looking at those are some of the key activities that we're working on.
It sounds like a long list to do.
Yeah, it's a journey, Raymond. It's not going to be an overnight thing. We know that it's a journey, but one thing on that, just listening to my colleagues here, Yusri and Aziz, I think one of the things that always, at a personal level, why I like working in PETRONAS, because we are a responsible organization. What does that mean? That means it's not about shelving it off. I do know that some other Western European countries, how they want to clean their carbon books is they divest their dirty assets. They don't mothball. So in essence, you could potentially divest it to less discerning shareholders that do not care less. How does that impact the world? Whereas your books look healthy. It doesn't make sense. I rather work for an organization that understands where we are, what we do, be open and transparent about it, but having certain efforts to help reduce carbon. I think that gives a lot of more meaning to me on a personal basis.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay, so I'll turn to Encik Yusri. PCG recently issued your first task force for climate-related financial disclosures report, and yeah, congratulations for that. And I do notice that you have added a new board member recently. So in addition to having more independent directors, you've also achieved the recommended 30% minimum women representation to the board. Talk us through about these recent changes.
Thank you. I think it was an effort for TCFD. So I think we are quite proud that we managed to publish that. And it is an effort by everybody within the organization and our key stakeholders. But one thing I just want to highlight, one area that the board has been looking is how do we strengthen the board on sustainability. So the selection of directors are important, but we were also at a point where a couple of directors has reached a tenure that they are retiring. So one thing that we have elevated is on sustainability. So we just created a board sustainability and risk committee at the board level, so that we can channel all the sustainability issues, deliberation to a board level committee, and then finding a director who can also help the board and the management to challenge us on sustainability. That's why we added up recently Datin Seri Sunita to our board. I think with her in the board, we are now 9 directors, and 5 are non-independent. 5 are independent. So we have more independents than non-independents on the board. And as you mentioned, right, you mentioned out now as 3 are ladies, and that brings us about 33% ladies. So it's always about how does the board challenges shape the company to the right, to the right pathways, and provide enough challenge to us as management to ensure that we remain true to our vision and aspiration, bringing the right value to our stakeholders.
Okay, thanks for that, Yusri. So, Encik Aziz has done a bit better than you. So his women representation on the board is 40% compared to your 23%. So still have a bit of catching up to do there.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
And he has increased his board membership to 10 members from your 9. So, Encik Aziz, tell us a bit about why you have such a large board and how do you manage to get so many women to join your board?
Okay, actually under the article of association, we have a total of 10. All this while we have never reached 10, 8 or 9. What happened was last year we undertook a detailed review of the board composition. Like what Yusri mentioned, the skill set. We come up with a new add to the strategy. One big thing that we took to consideration was, of course, sustainability. And then the second one was we think that given our value chain position, we should expand our position of power generation. So when we look at our board skill set, we feel that we need to complement those two new skill set to the board, existing board skill set. So Datuk Mat, who was the previous country chairman for GE, we believe we have the industry expertise on procurement and whatnot to help us testing on the generation capacity that we intend to increase. Mr. Sujit was with Badala, was looking at power investment from Badala. So we feel that the skill set could complement what we need in addition to the board that we had. So we went out and appointed these two. Of course, we have one lady board member who is already retired, Cik Abibah, reaching her 9 years term limit. So we are now on the lookout. I think we'll be a lady because we want to be ahead.
Want to maintain 40%, so he doesn't want to drop to 30%.
We want to be ahead of Yusri. But the skill set that we're looking at is probably on the sustainability. So we are on the searching mode now for that one new board members. In terms of independent board members, we have 6. So we are at 60%. So we are okay on this lens also.
Okay, that's good. Thanks for the great summary then. Okay, so we are moving on to the Q&A session, but there are no questions online. So if there's anybody who would like to key in your question, please do so. Maybe we'll give 1 minute for the listeners to key in your question. So just to summarize first, we have discussed about sustainability in this session. We have with us the MD CEOs for PETRONAS Dagangan, PETRONAS Gas, and PETRONAS Chemicals. And we spoke about the 4 sustainability lenses or pillars, which is number 1, continued value creation. Number 2, safeguarding the environment. Number 3, positive social impact. And number 4, responsible governance. So on this various topics, we have done a very detailed discussion, I think, of the situation for the 3 PETRONAS companies. Since there are no questions right now, so why don't we, since we are past the time, we're 7 minutes past 11, maybe I'd like to ask the 3 CEOs to give an overview of and summary or last message for the listeners online. Maybe we'll start with Yusri.
Okay, I think, thank you, Raymond. I think as a summary, let's just say PCG is on a growth path, and we are growing, in an area that is an adjacent to area that we already have. So that provides opportunities and that provides sustainability as a business. In addition, we are embedding sustainability angle into everything that we are doing now. So we put out what we call this an aspiration of net carbon zero by 2050, and we are well progressing into the strategies and initiatives. How do we achieve that? And those two drives. We will talk about it. The activities, the focus, the board composition. How do we shape the current board, the current management, and the current initiative of PCG, moving to that aspiration of growth sustainably.
Encik Aziz?
Okay, I think the whole thing what we are talking today is about mainly on sustainability. As you are aware, all three of us probably rated by FTSE for good along the sustainability lens. If you look at PGB, the three lens of continued value creation, governance, and positive social impact are all good. It's been rated by FTSE for good. What we need to improve is on this environmental. What I have shared with you is our plan on environmental. I hope you, audience, as well as you, Raymond and Sutin, you got the perspective of what we intend to do and be convinced that we are actually working in the right direction to be a sustainable company along those environmental nets on top of the other three.
Okay, that's very positive. Thank you for your commitment on behalf of the environment. Encik Azrul?
Trying to say something that's not been said already. I think if anything, it's very apt that you're doing this session with the three of us. I think that sort of shows the investors that we belong to a bigger group. I think there is a coherent, concerted effort, not just looking at each subsidiaries inside it. Because reality is where the world is moving, we need a lot more collaboration. And that's one of the key area of focus for me. And this is an area where we are willing to collaborate with anyone for that greater purpose. Be it in terms of reducing our carbon emissions, giving more value to our customers, creating and spurring more economic activities within the country. Those are all within the ambit. D&I and all that, I think a lot of organizations are doing that. I think with any PETRONAS subsidiary, you can be assured that it will be an area that we will be discussing and looking at in any case. Yes, we need to look at hard target numbers, but I think underlying a lot of that are the intent and the sincerity in terms of moving in that right space. I think more than anything, that would be the last parting message that I would like to give for this.
Okay, that's a very fitting message, Encik Azrul. So I'd like to thank the PETRONAS Group as a whole for setting Net Zero 2050 and for being determined to reduce emissions by 20% in 7 years' time and by 80% in 17 years' time. These are very short time frames. The technology behind it is not mature. There's a lot of investment that is needed, but your aspirations and your goals are very admirable, and you are being held up as an example for all Malaysian corporates to follow. So on this note, I'd like to thank Encik Yusri from PETRONAS Chemicals, Encik Aziz from PETRONAS Gas, and Encik Azrul from PETRONAS Dagangan for your time today, for sharing all these efforts that you are going to put in place in the next couple of years. So have a great Wednesday, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.